Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be going over a common scenario with Power Query, where we have a single file, maybe a CSV file or an Excel file, that we need to make work with multiple users. How often do you see this error? If you're not working with a central database, there's a good chance you've seen it more than once. This happens every time Power Query can't find a data source file. When there is generally no central location where data is stored, like a server database, files are shared, usually through email. Sometimes, files get renamed as a form of version control without considering the underlying data flow. There are at least 3 ways to get around this error. First, instead of using individual files, you can upload the data into a centralized database. This doesn't have to be a fancy cloud database, even Access is fine. Second, you could store the file in the same place with the same name every time, overwriting the underlying file. And finally, you could put a parameter into Excel to change the file that Power Query looks for. In the scenario we will be working with, we have weekly inflation data from Statistics Canada since 1972 that is created every week. This is visualized on a simple dashboard. Every week it has a different file name, as the old file is maintained for archive purposes. Only Excel can be used for this solution due to IT restrictions on database usage. Finally, the end users who produced this report have been using a cut and paste technique and do not know how to use Power Query. I suspect many of these sorts of restrictions are not uncommon in many business settings. So how can we produce a simple process to import the data into our dashboard? We can't use a central database. This has already been ruled out by IT. Second, we can't use the same file name every time without having to make multiple copies of the file. So, we'll create a process to pick up the file name for our inflation data using a file name in Excel. Let's take a look at what this dashboard and data set look like. This is our dashboard. It's pretty simple. There's the data up top on the right, which is the max date of the report. There are a couple slicers, one for the commodities and the other for the dates. There's a line graph showing the trend over the time. And if we go down to the bottom of the data, we can verify that it does provide weekly results for all 2019 data that we have selected up to December 11th. Now, we'll take a look at the Power Query that imported the data. So we're going to go into the Data menu and pull up Queries and Connections. Then we're going to edit the Weekly Inflation Query. This brings up our Power Query window. We have 3 columns, the date, commodity, and the value. And as you move through the steps in the query, you'll notice that there were some changes made. We moved a lot of the old data since it went back to 1972. There were some adjustments to get the date set up properly, and there were a number of columns that we didn't need. If we look at the source data though, we'll notice it has a CSV file named Inflation 2019-12-11. When we look in the directory, there is a possible problem. There is the file we've been working with, the December 11 file, but there's also a new file for December 18th, but we have no way to get that into our query. We're going to have to go back to Excel. Back in Excel, we'll add the file name into our spreadsheet. For now, we'll use the December 11 file name. We'll name the range that has our file name in it, File Name. Finally, under the Data menu, click on From Table/Range, which will send the file name into Power Query. Now that we're in Power Query, you can see that the file name that we had in Excel is now loaded into a table. In order to get that out of a table and into our other Power Query, we need to use the Advanced Editor. You'll notice the first line in the Advanced Editor, it says Source. The source is Excel.Current Workbook, and it has the name, file name, and content. No reference to our actual file name. That seems to be 3 lines down. We can use this to build our main Power Query. We'll copy the line and then cancel out of the Advanced Editor. Then we'll close Power Query. It's safe to discard changes, and we're back to Excel. The next step is to take the source we got from the Power Query that we didn't save and work that source into our main Power Query. So we're going to go back into our existing query, that's under Data, Queries and Connections, and then just edit on the Weekly Inflation Query. This brings our main query back onto the screen. Since we're looking to do something that isn't a recorded step, we'll need to go into the advanced editor. So there's a source already there. It's the first line. So we'll copy the new source we got from before, and we'll rename that file name. Since we know it's the file name, we should be able to change the file name in the source field to file name in order to get the file name right out of Excel. Looks like we have some investigating. It's saying we can't convert a value of type table to text. Well, let's try and fix that. The problem that happens is that we are trying to take a whole table of data and use it as a source for our data import. The data import is just looking for one value, the file name, so it throws an error. I've added a new query where we'll go through the steps of what the first query provides, down to what we need for the file name parameter. So after the initial source, we have a new line where we have column 1 in square brackets. This gives us only the values that are in the first column of the table and converts the table to a list. Then we have the file name value, where we add the 0 in curly brackets. 0 means the first position in the list, our file name. Let's go through an example. First, we have our source, which shows the table with column 1 and row 1. Next, we have the only column, which shows that the column 1 is now a list. Finally, the file name value, which shows that the value we need for our main Power Query. So we're going to go back into our main Power Query, back through data and queries and connections. It's saying our load to data model failed. We're going to be fixing that. So we still have our type table to text error. We'll go into the advanced query and we'll be fixing up that file name. So we add in the column 1 in square brackets and the 0 in curly brackets, and success! It looks like our query is no longer showing any errors and everything is loaded into the query. The final check we'll be running is to make sure we can load in that new data from December 18th. To make it a bit more clear, we'll adjust our slicer to only the last 3 months. And then we'll change our file name to the 18th and press the refresh all button. And after the refresh, we'll see the pivot table now shows December 18th, which it's been getting from the file from the 18th. And the line graph shows December 18th as well. If we want to bring back to the original template, we'll change the file name to the 11th and hit refresh. And there we go, December 18th is not on the pivot table or chart anymore. We're done for now. Congratulations. If we want to add some more code, we can make a VBA button that adds a way to pick up the file name and do the refresh, but that's another topic. Thank you so much for watching. This was the first video for this channel, and I hope it's been really useful. If you'd like to suggest a topic for a future video, please add your comment in the comment section. I try and put some new content for Excel on my blog frequently at macroordinary.ca/blog. Thank you again, and I hope to make more of these videos in the future.